On the 23rd of March 2021, a container ship called the Ever Given ran aground in the Suez Canal. It blocked one of the world's most critical waterways for 6 days. Around 400 ships backed up waiting to transit. Estimates put the disrupted trade at around $9 billion per day. The Ever Given was 400 meters long and nearly 60 meters wide. It was one of the largest container ships ever built. And the question almost nobody asked at the time was, why was it that big in the first place? Who decided that ships should be this large, and what does it cost when something goes wrong? I'm the host of Supply Chain Daily. My background is inside the global supply chain, the routes, the vessels, the economics of moving goods around the world. On this channel, I explain the big structural stories in global trade from the practitioner's perspective. Today, I want to explain something that gets very little attention outside the industry. Why container ships have been getting relentlessly bigger for 60 years, what the commercial logic is, and what the hidden costs of that logic actually are. Let's go. Container shipping moves approximately 90% of manufactured goods traded globally. If it came on a ship, there's a very good chance it came in a steel box, a container, stacked on a vessel. The economics of that system shape the price of almost everything you buy. And those economics have been driving ships toward ever larger sizes for the entire history of containerized trade. The first purpose-built container ship, the Ideal X, converted by the American entrepreneur Malcolm McLean in 1956, carried 58 containers. A large vessel today carries 24,000. That's not a modest increase. That is a complete transformation of the physics of trade. The size growth has not slowed. The world's largest ships today, vessels operated by MSC, Evergreen, and others, are longer than 4 Airbus A380s laid end to end. They are so wide that the original Suez Canal couldn't fit them. The expanded Panama Canal locks, completed in 2016, were built specifically to accommodate the generation of large ships that existed at that time. Ships have already grown past that spec. Containerization itself was the revolution. Before Malcolm McLean standardized the metal box in the 1950s, cargo was handled piece by piece, break bulk shipping, which required armies of dock workers and weeks in port. The container collapsed that labor cost and port time dramatically. Once containers were standardized, the next cost frontier was the ship itself. A ship's fixed costs, crew, insurance, finance, don't scale proportionally with size. A vessel that carries twice the containers doesn't cost twice as much to crew or insure. So the cost per container, the unit cost, falls as the ship gets bigger. That logic is relentless. It drove ship sizes from 1,000 TEU in the 1970s to 3,000 in the 1980s, 8,000 in the 2000s, and over 20,000 TEU today. The inflection point that most industry people mark is 2013 when Maersk launched the Triple E class. Vessels of 18,000 TEU, designed specifically around fuel efficiency at scale. The Triple E stood for Economy of Scale, Energy Efficiency, and Environmentally Improved. They were the largest ships ever built at the time. Within a decade, they were no longer the largest ships sailing. Here's what the economics look like from the inside, and here's what the public conversation consistently misses. The unit cost argument is real. A mega vessel on an Asia to Europe route does deliver a lower cost per container than a smaller vessel on the same route. That's why carriers keep ordering them and why shippers keep booking them. But the unit cost calculation only holds if the ship is full, on schedule, and transiting ports that can actually handle it. That third condition is the one that breaks down. The world's port infrastructure has not kept pace with ship sizes. Mega vessels require deep water channels, typically 16 meters or more. They require cranes with sufficient outreach to span the vessel's width. They require berths long enough to accommodate 400 meters of hull. Most ports in the world cannot provide all three. The ports that can are a relatively small number of major hubs: Rotterdam, Singapore, Tanjung Pelepas, Algeciras, a handful of others. The result is a cascading effect. Mega vessels sail between major hubs only. Smaller vessels, which are still large by historical standards, feed cargo between the hubs and the secondary ports, and smaller vessels still feed the secondary ports and the regional ports. Every increase in the size of the largest vessels pushes this cascade further, concentrating traffic at fewer and fewer hub ports and increasing the number of transshipment steps for cargo moving to smaller markets. The second hidden cost is concentration of risk. When a 24,000 TEU vessel is delayed, by weather, by port congestion, by a canal closure, the disruption is enormous. A single large vessel carries the equivalent of what would have been 3 or 4 medium-sized ships a generation ago. Its schedule failure affects thousands of cargo owners simultaneously. The Ever Given wasn't just one ship, it was the cargo of several ships' worth of goods, all trapped in one place. And there is a third cost that is only now becoming visible, the environmental one. Larger ships are more fuel efficient per container at optimal speed, but optimal speed is slow steaming, which became the industry norm after the 2008 financial crisis. To maintain schedule frequency with slower, larger ships, carriers need more vessels, and the construction and eventual scrapping of those vessels carries its own environmental costs that the per-container fuel efficiency calculation doesn't capture. From inside the supply chain, the bigness of ships creates a very specific operational challenge that doesn't show up in headline coverage. When a mega vessel calls at a port, the port essentially has to reorganize around it. The berth is monopolized for a day or more. Cranes are committed. Yard space has to be cleared. Feeder vessels and trucks have to be staged. For a large hub port with multiple mega vessel calls per week, this is manageable. They've built their operations around it. For a mid-tier port that gets one mega vessel call per week, each arrival is a managed disruption. For cargo owners, the shippers who actually pay to move goods, the bigger ships mean less frequent sailings. When a carrier consolidates two 10,000 TEU services into one 20,000 TEU service, the port calls might be the same, but the sailing frequency drops. If you miss a weekly departure, you might wait a week. That holding cost, in financing, in warehousing, in the risk of inventory arriving late, is real, and it doesn't appear on any freight rate invoice. The industry consensus is that we are approaching a practical ceiling on ship size, not because carriers have stopped wanting cheaper unit costs, but because port infrastructure is genuinely struggling to keep up. The question the industry is debating right now is not how large can we go, but have we already gone too large for the infrastructure that exists? This is Supply Chain Daily, the systems that run global trade, explained from inside the industry. New video every Thursday and Saturday. Subscribe if this is useful to you. And if you've worked in port operations, vessel management, or cargo logistics, I read every comment and your perspective makes this channel better. Until next time, keep an eye on what's moving.